subscribe, and follow the Twitch.
Now.
I know. Hey. No, why aren't you streaming though? Why aren't you streaming? They got me, okay? I'm in the iceberg rabbit hole now. All right? They got me. I had to succumb to it, bro. Look, I gotta give a shout out to the scare files on TikTok. I saw one video of this iceberg. I saw him do one little tiny story, and it bought me over. And you know what? I haven't researched a damn thing about this iceberg. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go one by one, and as I learn about it, I'm gonna be telling you. Now, honestly, I just want to do it. Okay? Because this iceberg just got me curious, and I know I'm not gonna do all this if I wasn't making a video. So starting off with the top of tier 1, this one's called
The Evil Farming Game.
This all starts 9 years ago when on the Reddit tip of my joystick, which if you aren't aware, essentially it's like I remember a vague detail about the game. Here I'm gonna put it. Can someone find this game? Tip of my joystick, tip of my tongue. Yes, and it starts with user Sparta213 posting. This game was kind of like Harvest Moon. If you don't know what Harvest Moon is, it's basically this 2D top-down farming game. Looks a bit like Stardew Valley, but it's not. And in his post, it reads, "I know almost nothing about this game. All I can remember is that it's kind of like Harvest Moon, but with a dark twist. The game starts out with you and your wife. One night you get into a fight, and you end up stabbing her to death. Now the game revolves around you farming to stay alive while trying to keep the town from finding out about the incident that happened. Every now and then, the cops come to search your house and you have to hide her corpse." I'm just gonna say it. What the hell are you playing? There's really no other games around this time. Okay, it was 9 years ago, chill. Now, all things considered, he really did not give us much to work with at all. So you have some speculation from a bunch of different people. You have some people suggesting it was an RPG Maker horror game. You have some people suggesting it was a Flash game. But still, you would need a little bit more details to actually identify it. Now, we do get a bit of an edit on this post from Sparta where he states, "I have no recollection of what console game this was for or when it came out. I know that it was released after 2000. I know this is so vague, but it's really hard to remember something you got. Also, it had to be before mid to early 2015. Graphics were not 3D. I'm 100% sure this was not a browser game." So this is very important moving forward. And you know, we continue to have a bunch of suggestions like, hey, is it Scapeland? Now, Scapeland tends to be a game where you are basically running from the cops, but hey, sir, you're not killing your wife in this game, so get on it. Not that killing your wife, just get on, like lock in. Now, he still offers a little bit of info in a reply where he says, "Well, I can remember that it wasn't a browser game. It was too high quality for that. And it was made after 2000 because I don't think that society would have been okay with something like that. I also just had this sort of gut feeling that it was after 2000. Now, we have multiple suggestions of different games, one of them being Wild Season as well. Now, Wild Season is a top-down 2D farming simulator. However, it still doesn't have the element of killing your wife and hiding from the cops. Now, of course, you had a significant amount of people that also thought that this might have been a dream or just something he made up. And that is a completely valid thought because, I mean, not enough details. Sounds pretty creepy. Not really sure who would even make a game with this plot, especially since he seems to regard it as a bigger production. Why would they choose something so offensive? Now, one thing to keep in mind was this post was made on April 30th of 2016. Jeez! Long ass time ago. Now, the post sort of faded into obscurity, as it does. I mean, there was vague details, a lot of people not even believing it's real. He's kind of shooting down all the offers of the games that it could be. Until 3 years later, on December 16th, 2018, when another user who goes by the name of David Spade AMA posted on the same Reddit, PC Evil Farming Game, which reads, "There was this farming game I used to have downloaded in about 2006 before I upgraded my computer and lost it. It was a farming, Stardew Valley style of game, where you murder your wife and then you try and pretend you never killed her. And that was the whole game. Keep farming and make sure no one finds out you killed her. There was a fishing minigame, and I specifically remember fishing up evidence of your wife's murder and then you pass out." Okay, things just got a lot more serious. What originally people thought just wasn't true and let fade into obscurity, another poster is talking about. And he offers some details that he downloaded in 2006, that there was a phishing minigame, that you fish up evidence of your wife's murder. So now you have people who were previously doubting Sparta. Sorry, Sparta, you ain't deserved the disrespect. And now you have someone that has allegedly had the same exact experience, and now you have people talking about, wait, maybe this isn't a dream. Maybe you can tell us more details, which he follows up with, oh wow, I thought I was the only one. Not mentioned that in that post was that the pixel art gameplay and weird cutscenes are in a different style. It was downloaded off some shoddy indie dev's website that also had a ton of graphic live leak style videos to download. The name was so out there that I can't think of what it was. It might have started with Ash and then kept going, but that might have been another site. Following up to another question asked by Dayman57, which says, what graphical and era details can you add? Also, do you know if it was an RPG Maker game? Was it a standalone game? Did you download it off the web? Hey, calm down with the questions, man. Relax. David Spade AMA, the goat he is, responds, it was not an RPG Maker game. And I do think it was freeware. Downloaded off the web and not a physical disc. It was its own game. Downloaded off what I think was the developer's website, and there was a ton of messed up stuff on the website, like r/watchpeopledie stuff, where, if you can't tell that subreddit, you watch people die. It had a weird art style. I remember the game Yick is what made me think of it. It was pixel art during the gameplay, but had cutscenes too, which I don't remember if they were voiced. Now, one thing that also stands out is the original poster Sparta states that it was a console game. It was not a PC game. And he's 100% sure it's not a browser game. But then David Spade says he got it off the website. So, yeah, we got somewhere, and now we're 4 steps back. Now, in the original post, David also says, edit. It wasn't pretending to be a kid's game. It was an RPG Maker, and I got it off some indie dev's website. There were screens between each day that showed the date in the game. And one of the characters was an old dude with a white beard. Now, one theory commonly that was brought up on the Reddit was that it was the game Moirai, but it still doesn't fit the story, although it is the closest game to what they describe. Now, a little bit later, on December 29th, 2018, a user going by the name of You Done Me a Bamboozle would post to the Reddit a post under the title, Avoiding the Police After Killing Your Wife. Living a Normal Life. Hi all, first time posting here. Today I found my old laptop, but sadly it won't boot up. But it brought back some great memories. Particularly a game I'm about to describe. So at the start of the game, you killed your wife, but after that you just lived as normal. Managing your farm, however, it had a twist. The police could come at any time and find the body, so you had to constantly be wary and move the body. The laptop was built in 2021, and I bought a new one in 2003, so it would have been between that time. It wasn't a browser game, and I think I may have gotten it from uTorrent, but can't remember, to be honest. Hope this is enough info, and many thanks. So this post alone got a lot of people's hopes up. People were like, finally, we have something. He has the game. All he needs to do is recover this hard drive. So now with this, you even have people that are offering to fund a professional data extractor to get this game off the damn PC. And he comes back with, edit. Many thanks to all those offering to recover my hard drive. I'm actually in the UK, and a lot of the offers seem to be from the US. My local computer store opens Wednesday, the 2nd of January, so I'm gonna take it in to see if they can get it to boot up. Many thanks again, it's very kind of you all. And he comes back, edit. Checked in later today. Quite busy, but should have an update Friday. Final edit. Sad news, the laptop is buggered. The dampness, what is buggered? What is buggered? The dampness / moisture of the storage I placed it in has knackered it all. British people. Any final suggestions? And then finally he basically states that the platter of the hard drive was damp and is unrecoverable. So now we're back with nothing. Keep in mind this was 6 years ago in 2018 in December. Now after this there's really no more additions to the story, and I want to mention that this was actually very obscure before Nexpo covered it in a video, which really blew it up. So the fact that it was obscure, because if I'm remembering correctly, Sparta's original post only had about 100 upvotes. It was not a big thing. And now in 2025, here we are. On Tip of My Joystick, 4 years ago, on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, from a mod, they say, the evil farming game has been found. Those of you who have been here for a while may remember the evil farming game incident from a year ago, where a Nexpo video covering creepy Reddit posts sent thousands of visitors to this subreddit. The creepy post in question was about a farming game where you kill your wife and have to hide the body from the police. Originally posted in 2016, this grew to be a localized subreddit legend before Nexpo's video exposed it to a much larger audience. Now, 5 years after the original post and 1 year since it got big, the evil farming game has been found. As it turns out, it wasn't a real game. It was a misremembered joke from a Vinesauce Joel stream.
It honestly, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like Harvest Moon, but with like corpses. That'd be a fun game, just playing as Harvest Moon, but throughout all of the gameplay, you gotta hide a dead corpse. You know what? No, fuck. You know what it is? Harvest Moon. It's just regular Harvest Moon with your wife. And midway in the game, you have an argument with your wife, and you accidentally kill her with like a barbecue kebab rack. You impale her accidentally, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't mean that. At the same time as you gotta like manage your farm, you know, raise your chickens and milk the cows, you also gotta like hide the body from the cops sometimes, from health security checks, and yeah.
How goddamn depressing. Anyways, while that was long and intended to come out nowhere, man, that sucks. I'd rather have no explanation than have that. That blows, okay? And it's the first one on the iceberg, so we can't be too harsh. But the second one is named
Yay, video games.
Okay, well, this one's more depressing and actually scary. This one's scary. Hey man, it's a different day. Why you got your hair out? Don't say nothing about my hair. Come on. Yes, it's a different day. What do you care? Focus. Now, the way this one starts is actually hilarious. It literally starts on the subreddit r/gaming 15 years ago with user I wish I was a meme. The post is titled, "Just got Oblivion for PC. What are your favorite mods? I want to make this game as pimped out and awesome as I can." So, you know, normal ass question. He just got Oblivion for his PC, but he wants to know what mods can I do to spice this game up? And, you know, for the most part, the comments are relatively normal. There's people actually giving realistic suggestions like, hey, pick up these mods. And then we get a response from YAYVIDEOGAMES on this thread, which says, "The uninstall button. The game is great and all that, but God, it is hard to fully remove all the junk it leaves behind on your system. You really need to check out that mod when the time comes to get rid of it. Otherwise, I think Oscuro's Oblivion overhaul is a nice start." Look, dude, the guy just wanted some fucking mods. And he says, nah, just uninstall it, bro. It's not like haters are a new thing on the internet. You know, this is commonplace so far. In which a since deleted user responds with, "What? That's it?" Just asking, hey, the hell are you even saying? To which YAYVIDEOGAMES responds, "The uninstall button. The game is great. Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM. But you off go work, always on work DR. Check out the junk it leaves behind in you." Now, if you're a speaker of the English language or have a functioning brain above the level of a 6-year-old, this doesn't make sense. Like, he's just yapping. The deleted user would then respond, "This makes even less sense. Oblivion has an uninstall button. It works. I have used it more times than I care to mention. All mods install themselves in Oblivion's directory. The uninstall doesn't touch them as it is unaware. All you do is delete the Oblivion directory. Then they go bye-byes, yes?" Now this is where it gets actually creepy. From this point on, YAYVIDEOGAMES goes into an absolute mental spiral where he floods this thread with over 4,000 messages in just a few hours. Now this thread has since been long scrubbed, but you can see some of them still left here, which all the threads are just a slightly different variation of his statement. Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM. We get a bunch of different variations of this. It's not like he's just copy and pasting. Some of them have different capitalization. Some of them have different formats, but all in all, he's saying the same thing over and over, and he just completely takes over this thread. Now, as you can see, and this is only a fraction of what he was actually terrorizing this thread with, but this just gives off some it's just really creepy and mysterious. You don't really understand like what even set off this mental tirade? I mean, it looks like we're watching a mental episode, and his mental state is deteriorating in this thread alone, just from someone saying, what? And yeah, man, the uninstall button works. Now, along with this thread, he ended up posting some weird links to pictures before as well, which if you reverse image search them, they don't actually pop up anywhere. And I'm going to throw some of those up. And this is probably the most unsettling part of it all, is that during this whole tirade, he'd put these embedded links, and it would lead to these types of pictures. Very cryptic. They look AI generated. Keep in mind, this was 15 years ago. There's also one link he put that leads to a pic that has his infamous saying, Ubisoft, Steamworks, bye-bye, always on DRM. And it's written in a way that just does not look like he's of sound mind. Now, of course, you cannot just spam continuously and shut a whole thread down and have a cryptic mental breakdown in a thread. So not only did his account get banned, but the thread was pretty much deleted, and then his account was deleted. And then people got curious, you know, well, who is this guy? Is this normal? And no, he has a common history of responding in r/gaming, and most of the posts were relatively normal. But there is one thing, and I'm not going to go through all the ties of how you eventually get into all these accounts. Now, there is one other Reddit that he was a part of on his account, which is r/cleanliness, which, I mean, if you pull it up, it's very strange. Nobody's really talking about anything of substance, no pun, and nothing here is really making sense. And there's only a few accounts in this Reddit as a whole. But one thing that did stand out was this post right here from YAYVIDEOGAMES 13 years ago, where it's titled, "Magic. I need some for help. I will not use it evilly." What does this mean? This guy's having a breakdown in one subreddit, and then he's talking cryptically about magic in r/cleanliness. Like, this just doesn't make sense. So then people started looking towards the other members of the community at the time. Keep in mind, at the time, there was probably only 4 people in this Reddit. Like, nobody really knew about it. And people started to take note of the moderator, No Substance Here, on the r/cleanliness Discord. And I'm not going to go into all of the intricacies of how they found out all these accounts were connected. A basic overview: we got YAYVIDEOGAMES in the original thread, r/gaming, and then he is also active in r/cleanliness, who No Substance Here is a mod of, and Not Sure How Big You Are is also active in it, along with a small account named Vinyl Record. Now, looking into all these accounts, we can see various similarities in the way they're posting. So we can just make an assumption that they are all the same person. No Substance Here, who was the mod of r/cleanliness, at the time him and YAYVIDEOGAMES were really the only people using it, had posted similarly cryptic messages in other Discords, such as these, which all had the same text, but different titles. We can see one here from r/gaming. "What are the cheat codes you'll never forget? The interrogation room underwent some changes while you were away. What are some games you loved enough to buy twice? The interrogation room underwent some changes while you were away. What's your favorite game soundtrack? The interrogation room underwent some changes while you were away." So now it's genuinely getting really creepy. This guy is talking about things that nobody even understands. And it's also just worth mentioning that at the time, people were responding to this shit and just like pretending that the creepy stuff wasn't there. Hello? Open your eyes. Now, I did mention that I'm not going to go through exactly all the details of finding out how all these accounts were interlinked. If you want to go do that, go watch an Expo's video. But we go through No Substance Here account, since we can logically assume, okay, this is the same person. And he was also moderating this Reddit called Banana Freaks. Now, you can see by the images on the screen, there was only 2 posts in this Reddit at the time, both by the mod No Substance Here, and one is of this weird drawing of, I don't know, a penis, a carrot, a dick, licking this guy's ear and saying "I like it," with the title Dirty Freak. And then the other one was just a post of Cheeto Puffs, and it was titled Banana Freaks. So this Reddit is completely pointless, also more cryptic, and it's worth mentioning that, like, at this point, you would probably just think it's a bot, but no, this is a real person that's doing this. In addition to YAYVIDEOGAMES and No Substance Here, one of the comments was by a user named Not Sure How Big You Are, and going through their account, we can see similar confusing and cryptic messages, which this user tended to be very accurate in r/hipster jokes. I mean, we can see fucking triangles, I guess, weird glasses picture with laughing, and then he posts this a bunch. Now it's very important you note that the similarities between all of these people are uncanny. YAYVIDEOGAMES goes into these fits of repeating himself with very cryptic messages that don't seem to mean anything. However, now that we're sure that this is his account as well, as the behavior is eerily similar, some of the biggest clues that we're going to get to what this guy is going through, what's the deal with all the repetition, what's the deal with the mental breakdowns, and what is his deal overall, why did this happen, is going to be through Not Sure How Big You Are's account. Now when scrolling through Not Sure How Big You Are's account, it's very clear that he's knowledgeable on a plethora of different drugs, and we can see this in some of his posts, just like this one on r/meds posted that states both gabapentin and Lyrica have been harder to give up than any opiate/benzo/anything I've ever taken. They can also just generally fuck anything and everything up for you, or otherwise make things incredibly weird, which they both did/do for me too. So imagine being stuck feeling drunk all day and having things like old conversations invade your thoughts. They don't do this to everyone, of course, but it's a risk to consider. And then he even adds a disclaimer on the bottom of this post: don't ever take any drug lightly, prescribed or not, because a lot of doctors don't even really understand the implications of half of what they prescribe, especially brain drugs that may as well all have a giant "we don't know what the fuck this will do to you" sign on them. Now we get a little bit more information of what is really going on in his life. He's on these drugs, which, if you look at both of them are prescribed to treat nerve pain. He elaborates a little bit more on a post from r/Atheist Havens titled Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Spare bed here if you don't mind an over-medicated chronic pain sufferer being generally irritable, of course. I'm an ex-Jehovah Witness myself, which, if you aren't familiar with them, sort of makes someone automatically accustomed to people being rendered homeless due to an oppressive religious environment. Almost went through it myself back when. Wow. So he's in constant pain and an ex-Jehovah Witness. Now this religious background is going to be very important, so just keep it in mind while we move forward. We get a little bit more information on r/CFS, which, if you don't know, CFS is chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a complex and poorly understood condition characterized by persistent severe fatigue that interferes with daily life. Now, if we put two and two together, he seems to be in a lot of pain, and now he's specifically going to a Reddit for chronic fatigue syndrome. We know that he seems to have been medicated for a while now. From this, it's starting to seem like someone less with a mental disorder and more like someone that just needs help, someone that is not medically well, and someone that's been prescribed drugs for so long that they might actually be interfering with his mental health. In this post on r/CFS, this is titled, How Do I Get Out of This Hole? Diagnosed with CFS 2.5 years ago, and I was improving a lot up until April, where I had a significant relapse that probably sent me back a year and a half in recovery time. I'm struggling to get myself out of this hole again and feel like I won't get better again. I just keep thinking, what if I didn't do this? Then I would be better by now. I guess my question is, how do people cope when they relapse? I was never really defeated by this thing until I relapsed, and now I feel defeated. Not sure how I will move forward. So on that same thread about how do I get out of this hole, he actually adds a comment and says, well, this is how I endured the pain of recovering 6 lost years of my life due to sickness. Endured a terror that ravaged me with each step outside I took, and that almost and occasionally did make me break down crying in a panic just because I was exercising. A pain that awaited me for hours during the day while I waited in bed with nothing to do except sit in pain, just so I could exhaust myself by walking a few blocks or lift weights for a few minutes and then go back to bed and wait for my reason for being to come again the next day. The total lack of any enjoyable activity whatsoever. Total inability to even feel pleasure. Panic that drove me to waking so often I was sleeping in 2-hour blocks at a time. Restless legs that has driven me crazy 24/7 for about a decade, now due to human waste who called himself a doctor and gave a young teenager a dose of antipsychotics. Because hey, why bother trying anything else first when the person in front of you is just a delusional idiot, right? A back that never, ever, ever stopped aching. Tearing me up on the level of a middle grade flu maybe, but stiffened every single muscle. And, well, you get the picture. This person you are now isn't you. You are a sacrificial lamb. You're nothing more than a proxy whose entire reason for existence is to suffer and work. This miserable wreck of suffering who has to slog through all this pain and the blood and shit and the fucking bone-freezing lonely cold is someone that progressed you in using in order to get back to where they were. You are a whipping boy. You don't deserve pleasure. Your sole reason for existence is to suffer through all that progress they made all over again. You aren't even a person. You're a tool whose sole job is to serve the person who's sitting comfortably, sheltered from all this, just watching and waiting for you to complete your work and die off. All I can say that in my case, it worked. I mean, Jesus, it's genuinely getting just more and more sad. And I think the most important part of this block of text right here is it really emphasizes how painful it was for him to just live and how struggling to find a reason to live became more and more of a challenge as the days moved on. Now, he also refers to his meds as a dose of antipsychotics and that he was prescribed them as a young teenager. Now, this will take us to r/EXJW, aka Reddit for Ex Jehovah's Witnesses. And under a post titled, "What warped worldview did you have while at JW?" Not Sure How Big You Are provides a response, saying, "I believe that actual demons were roaming the earth, manifesting themselves horror movie style. I know that's a core teaching, more or less, but for a few years I thought I actually encountered a demon once that they were watching me in my dreams. See, I used to get pretty sick semi-regularly, with migraines and fevers bad enough to make me delirious and give me hallucinations. When I was around 4 or 5, I was in bed at night with one of these fevers and I saw one of the walls in my bedroom start shimmering around and warping itself. Then a silhouetted black figure stepped out of the wall and started pacing back and forth in front of it. Naturally, I was scared shitless. I couldn't even move. I just lay there watching it walk in front of my wall for I don't know how long before it stopped pacing and stood, looking directly at me, until I couldn't make it out anymore from all the patterns and movements in the wall behind it. I actually managed to get back to sleep after all that, probably thanks to the fever. So when I woke up, I went straight to my mom to tell her what I saw. And she told me it was all real, and that all terrible pictures I was drawing, monsters torturing people and whatnot, had broken Jehovah's protection and invited the demon into my room. Cool. So you can imagine how much that's going to fuck with a 4-year-old. Then reoccurring nightmares about it after that were practically guaranteed. But of course back then, I thought it was just more proof that they were trying to get me. So now you have just about the worst combinations of things that you can possibly even obtain. You've got a mom who's using her child's trauma to confirm her beliefs. These beliefs could have led to further mental deterioration, which eventually, combined with his condition, led him to being prescribed drugs at a very early age. Of course, with all drugs, I'm sure you all know, eventually a tolerance would build. So you have to keep going and going and going. Now we get an idea of how severe his drug use was in the same subreddit r/CFS on a post titled +1 for drugs. And I'm not going to read this all, I'm going to just let it play by. But the important part of this is that he was taking about 1,200 milligrams of CWE codeine a day at one point. Now another thing in this post that is oddly creepy is that he talks about his chemical torture room house, which he's been staying in, and even provides a pic of it in the post itself, which I'll put up on screen. This is horrifying. I mean, can you imagine having to be holed up in this room? They're treating him like Hannibal Lecter. So I'm gonna put up some pictures from the Vinyl Records account just to show a little bit about that. I know we didn't dive into that too much. Like I said, if you want to see that, go watch Nexpo's video. But as for Yay Video Game Story, this is pretty much all we get from him. I mean, all of the accounts have been active for a very, very long time. And it isn't really until some years later that we get an update from someone who was apparently a friend of Yay Video Games. This comes from the r/Yay Video Games Reddit itself from Luke M. Kleisch. This post is titled, "Hi guys, I'm Luke, and I'm one of Yay Video Games' best friends. Ask me anything. First off, let me say it's a great surprise to see such a big community around my best mate. I had no idea about this until today. His name is Lyndon, and we lost him at the beginning of 2015. Life hasn't been the same since. Someone reached out to me on Facebook, so I thought I'd come over here and shed some light on Lyndon's life. Lyndon was an amazingly kind and intelligent guy who was really creative. He was constantly creating art and music, which he never recorded to my knowledge, animation, of which I have some in the archives, and he loved storytelling. He had a small group of friends in real life as he bailed on high school and started isolating himself due to his chronic illness in about 2005. We miss him very much. Due to his Jehovah's Witness background, he never let us know the day he was born, but based on bits and pieces I picked up over the years, it would have been his 31st birthday last February. I know he would have loved that there is this much mystery around him after he's left us, but I think there's some important topics to cover here. Chronic pain, self-medication, invisible illness, the allied health system, and how important it is to seek to be among others in some way. I hope that we can draw some closure out of this and hopefully move a little closer towards having further understanding and compassion towards people who may be in the position Lyndon suffered through. So that's how it ends. You know, it wasn't some crazy guy or some really cryptic dude who had lost his mind. It was just a guy that needed some help, who lived a life that was not worth living, in constant pain and isolation. And eventually, with all the medication combined with his childhood trauma, unfortunately took his own life. Wow, a big jump from a fake video game, I'll say. Very depressing. R.I.P. Lyndon. I think everybody can find some very real merit in what he was talking about. I think everybody can agree with the message that maybe meds aren't always necessary, and maybe some people genuinely just need some other solutions to their problems. But moving on to that, and hopefully a more lighter note, because I haven't done my research yet, so I don't know, we have Colby on the top of this iceberg next. I don't know. I don't know if I can keep doing this iceberg, yo. This is the most wild one so far. It's tier 1. It's not supposed to be like this. The worst part is it's clickbait. It sounds lame as shit. Like Colby. Who the fuck is Colby? So the story of Colby starts out with this post on Ask Reddit from Concerned Dad, 1965, 13 years ago on April 9th, 2012. The post title? I think my teenage son may have sodomized our dog. I'm not sure what to do. Help me, Reddit. Bro. This shit just gets more and more wild. So I'm not gonna read every single word exactly, but I'm gonna read some passages and just give a brief overview. It starts off like, okay, for obvious reasons, this is a throwaway account. So I'm not even sure how to start here. The last couple of weeks, my dog, 7-year-old lab, has been acting noticeably different. I guess I could describe it as distant, even depressed. He's normally an extremely outgoing and happy dog, very playful and energetic, etc. But starting about 2 weeks ago, he started acting very withdrawn and nervous around people, even his own family. At first, I kind of brushed it off as feeling under the weather, but after a week and a half, I decided he maybe did need to see the vet. What? He maybe needed to see a vet. I got him in yesterday, and after an examination, the vet told me that he believes the dog has been sodomized. Bro! What? His anus had slight damage that was consistent. So from here, he basically starts going through process of elimination. He's like, well, I didn't molest my dog. So who could have? Well, gardeners, maybe, neighbors, maybe. But in the back of his head, he had been thinking, like, maybe it's my son. He's had this sneaking suspicion, dare I say. And that's when he went snooping and found his son on bestiality forums with pictures of that sort of thing. So he knows that he's basically saying, well, I can't say for certain, but this is very concerning. Key detail, because this is what all makes it go wrong. He does not tell his wife about this. And he's basically saying, I don't know what to do. I'm upset. I'm confused. I'm conflicted. I remember I was conflicted. And help me, Reddit. Well, naturally, after reading something so terrible like this, many people are like, dude, you need to get your son away from the dog. You need to have a talk with him and sit him down and make sure he understands how damaging this actually is and how not normal this is. And the dad agrees. He's like, you know, I don't want to have this conversation, but it's gonna have to happen. You also have some other people being like, hello, bestiality forums, like, it is proof. I know you're in denial, Dad, but hey, lock it in, lock it in. And naturally, the dad is just like, well, I don't know, can I even keep the dog now? Like, I don't know if he actually had sex with it, but he definitely did something to the dog. And of course, you have your abundance of support as well. I mean, this fucking sucks. People are like, hey, this is definitely on the more weird, criminal, scary side of shit, but, you know, teenagers, they're explorative. And he's kind of like, yeah, thank you guys for the support. I agree with you all. This isn't really normal, but, you know, maybe we can nip this in the bud. So he comes back with an edit basically saying, hey guys, thanks for all the advice. I think I'm gonna confront him about it privately. He's not telling his wife. He is not telling his fucking wife that her son is... Oh, Fido. So his son gets home. Basically, he watches TV with his wife until she falls asleep, goes up to his room and talks to him privately where he brings it up. And the son at first is denying it, like, no, I would never do that to the dog, absolutely not. He brings up the bestiality forum, and they kind of go off on a little tangent of, wait, you were on my computer, what were you doing? And so the dad is basically like, yeah, let's get back to the point. And 10 to 15 minutes later of constantly just, hello, did you do it? Like, come on, I pretty much know. He finally admits to it. He says after about 10 to 15 minutes of this, he finally breaks down and admits that he put the handle of a hairbrush as well as fingers into the dog a few times during a day last week. He said he wasn't trying to hurt him, and he stopped when the dog at one point freaked out. He said he didn't think it hurt it that bad, and he was too embarrassed to tell us or do anything about it. I believed him in this, but he also didn't give a very satisfactory answer as to why exactly he would do this in the first place. I have to admit, either way, I was glad on some level to hear that he wasn't actually having sex with the dog. So basically we agreed that I wouldn't tell his mom, but that we would find a reason to tell her that he needs to see a therapist. So he essentially says, hey, I'm not even going to tell your mom about this, but you have to swear no more molesting the dog. And he basically, yeah, that's where it leaves off here. And then he goes on to say, hey guys, thank you. I'm still a little bit, like, my mind's a little bit scrambled from all that's just happened this week. But yeah, we'll make sure to throw the hairbrush away. I've been paying extra attention to the dog. And then 2 months later, on June 21st, 2012, he follows up with a post saying, I am the father and the Redditor whose son sodomized our dog with a hairbrush 2 months ago. He's done it again, and I don't know what to do. Please help. Bro, he can't keep doing this. He can't keep doing this. Again? Colby, no! So he goes on to say, like, alright, well, last time you guys helped me make a decision, maybe you can help again. Recaps the situation, and then says, well, this morning I caught my son in the backyard holding on to Colby's genitals while playing tug of war with him. Granted, this isn't sodomization and the dog seemed to be okay, but my son was basically grabbing and massaging the dog's privates as he held him in place under the guise of a tug of war game. This child needs his ass whooped. And a criminal sentence! So he storms outside in very angry, grabs him, has a very serious talk, and he's like, hey, what happened to our promise? You said you wouldn't do this again. And he sends him to his room for the rest of the day. And at this point, he's fed up, right? I mean, one instance is more than enough. You do it twice after promising you wouldn't do it. He's gonna tell his wife now. So as he waits for her, he sees a lot of comments basically saying, dude, the dog is in danger at this point. You need to rehome this dog. I'm not trying to take a shot at you. I'm not trying to say it's all your fault, but you need to get this dog away. And he says, yeah, thank you for all being sincere. I really have been considering this possibility, even though, you know, I don't want to give away my dog. Obviously, when my wife gets home, I will have a lot to discuss with her, and she doesn't even know about the original incident. Again, Thank you so much. I'm gonna discuss it with my wife. Where he comes back and unfortunately says, well, that didn't go so well. My wife got home, I told her what happened, and immediately slipped up that I knew about this 2 months prior. And that I lied to you about the reason for him needing therapy. And I promised him I wouldn't tell you. She ends up telling him, hey, I feel very fucking betrayed, calls him a bunch of names, grabs her purse, leaves the house. He went to talk to his son because, I mean, his parents are having a screaming match downstairs. Like, he heard it, and his son didn't seem too happy. But seems to understand that, like, well, it had to be this way. It's your fault. So he comes back with another update, says he tries to call his wife, but she didn't answer. As for the son, he has only seen him leave his room to eat a Hot Pocket. And, you know, when he talks about how young his son is, you would think, like, okay, this kid is really, really, really young doing all this. He says, since a lot of you are curious, my son is 15 years old. Now, I don't know about y'all, but me at 15, this wasn't even in the realm of things that were happening. A little bit too old to be exploring like this, if you know what I mean. But his wife did end up calling him back and saying that she's going to stay at his sister's just to clear her head. I mean, that's a lot to drop on her all at once. He apologizes and everything and basically says, look, he was vulnerable enough with me to trust me with this information. I feel like I owed it to him to not just immediately go run and tell you. She didn't give a shit, which, duh, hello, and even says, like, okay, well, I love you, bye. She does not say it back. Now, he still hasn't seen his son, but for 40 minutes since he got his Hot Pocket, he has been in his room listening to dubstep. I mean, I fucking can't. I can't do this. And he goes back to sleep in his room and starts to think of families that he can rehouse Colby to. Now, 2 months later, on August 16th, 2012, he says, update, I'm the father and Redditor whose teenage son sodomized our family dog, Colby. It's been 2 months since the latest incident and my family is falling apart. In this post it reads, well, a hell of a lot has happened to my family since then, and none of it has been very good. Basically, after hiding the first incident from my wife, I felt obligated to tell her about it when I caught my son sexually abusing Colby again. Turns out not telling her the first time was probably the worst decision I ever made, and you will see why. It only gets worse for this poor father, this poor gentle soul. He basically talks about, yep, well, my wife is pissed. Our relationship has actually been pretty rocky these past few years, and this was just another hurdle that we did not need. So when she comes back, there's a lot of blaming him for being the bad guy. And he's basically like, okay, you know what? She blames me. I get it. I fucked up. But let's focus on priorities. This dog needs a new home right now. So as he begins to start searching and brings it up to his wife doesn't immediately take to that idea. My wife did not like this idea, and after several more arguments, I come to find out that she suspects that our son never even abused the dog to begin with. She tells me that she has spoken to our son about it, and he denied ever doing anything. I would have beat his ass. Oh my god, I would have got the belt. I would have got the spoon, the spatula. He needs his ass whipped. Now he's lying to his own mom saying, no, I didn't do it. Making her think that it was her husband? Bro. So he's fucking pissed at this point. Keeps going back and forth with his wife, leading to a trial separation. He is now in a different house. He has went to a friend's house to stay temporarily while they figure this shit out. But guess where Colby is? Still with the son and wife. Oh my fucking god, bro. This poor dog. He's absolutely infuriated with this, and when he tries to take Colby, his wife says some crazy shit to him. Like, why? Why do you want to take him? So you can sodomize him again and blame it on your son, you sick fuck? Is that not grounds for divorce immediately? Bro, goodbye. Alright, you know what? Fine. You think that? How about this? When Colby still gets injured, I don't want to hear shit from you. Bye. This whole thing has just become a complete nightmare. I've tried to confront my son about denying what he did to his mom, and he won't even talk to me, and has just started taking the stance that I'm crazy. I guess he thought he saw a way out of all this and decided to just throw his dad under the bus. That is probably the most hurtful part of this entire ordeal, to be honest. I'm used to having my wife be a complete bitch to me at this point, but the betrayal by my son, who I was only trying to help, is like a knife in the heart. I mean, you really can't do anything but feel for this dude. He rounds it off with saying, I know I should be focused on the dog's safety, but look, my life has taken a complete 360 and I don't know how to fix it. I've honestly got other priorities that my mind is occupied with at the time. Obviously, I'd like to see him rehome, but I need to focus on my relationship with my wife. Now, I know this is kind of unique, but I'm sure there's some of you out there who have had something similar happen to you. Any advice? No, sir. No, sir. Nobody has had this happen, bro. This is just you. This is just your fam. This is just yo familia, bro. I'm telling you. Now, he jumps in the comments basically responding to all the support they've been giving this poor, unfortunate man. And he's basically saying, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why she would blame me for this. The only thing I can think is that she just can't even comprehend that her own child would do something about that. And in addition to the details about me not telling her for 2 months, hopefully she can just calm down and rationalize the situation, because the last thing I want from this is a divorce where who sodomized the dog becomes a topic in court. So about a month later, on September 14th, 2012, I am the father/redditor who lost his family after it came to light that my son has been sexually abusing our dog, Colby. I have some good news for everyone. Colby is safe, but there's still the question of what to do with my son. So he tries to get in contact with his son to basically confront him about fixing this, and his son just dodges his calls. And he basically goes to the house and starts knocking on the door. The wife will not answer the door, so he starts pounding on the door as he gets angrier and angrier, yelling even in the house. This is where his wife comes out, and they have a yelling match in the front yard, where he says, I finally left her after she just put her hands over her ears and started yelling, dog fucker, dog fucker, dog fucker, over and over and over again to humiliate me in front of the neighborhood. Dog fucker, dog fucker, dog fucker. Dog fucker, dog fucker, dog fucker. As I walked back to my car fuming, I looked back at the house and saw my son staring at me from the second-story window with a blank look on his face. I stared at him and shook my head in disappointment, but he didn't change his expression. I have to admit, this really broke my heart and pissed me off. This man's son is legitimately the Joker. This is the Riddler. The Diddler. We need to... Bro, he has no remorse. He has torn his family apart because he can't control himself. And his dad even compromised. He said, bro, I'm not going to tell anyone about this. Stop. And he couldn't stop. It's insane. Now, this is where we get the turnaround. So fast forwarded to just a couple days ago. I'm at work nearing the end of my day when suddenly my phone rings and it's my wife. I pick it up and she's sobbing and obviously very upset. She tells me that Colby has bitten my son and he has gone to the hospital to get stitches. She says Colby bit him in the lower abdomen 2 times. She doesn't know what to think. Obviously, I know exactly what happened. I could tell she finally knew I was right. Colby would never bite anyone unprovoked. He is an incredibly friendly dog and has no history of biting or being aggressive at all. So finally, the wife experiences it firsthand. You know, I mean, she didn't see the incident, but a friendly dog just biting him so bad to leave stitches. This is genuinely so sad, man. It's really sad. When we got off the phone, I felt this rage building inside of me. I felt like it was finally time for this shit to end. Colby had stood up for himself against my son, who had betrayed both of us. I couldn't prove it, but I just know my son was abusing the dog again, and I felt responsible for having left him alone with Colby all these times. It was like Colby finally lashed out in desperation after having nobody there to protect him. I felt sick to my stomach for having abandoned my dog with my kid, who obviously doesn't give a fuck about me or any of us, as long as he can keep getting away with shit. He goes back home, gets in this fit with his son, basically saying, I know what you did, you cannot deny it. If you ever do this again, I will report you to the police. This is your last chance. Now. This is disgusting, I raised you better, all of that. And as he's leaving, he decides to take Colby with him, and his wife stops him crying, basically apologizing, and they have this heartfelt moment where she's asking for forgiveness, which honestly, she needs to be on her hands and knees pleading after what she's put this man through. He forgives her, and she invited him to stay at the house, but he says, no, I'm not moving in with my family anytime soon. Not in the immediate future either. And he goes to stay with a friend who allows his dog to reside there. So he basically just wanted to come back and say, hey, the dog's safe. I don't know what I'm going to do with my family. So I report him. You know, the more I think about it, he probably will just do this again. I'm legally responsible since I am his father, but what kind of punishment would I even face for this? And that's really where it ends, you know? We don't get many comments from him after that on this. There was an Ask Me Anything that he did post, but that thread did get deleted. And it isn't until 6 years later that we get some closure with this story. On July 1st, 2018, on a post titled, "What was one of the most mysterious posts found on Reddit?" Gestrid comes and comments, "I wonder if you/ConcernedDad1965 still looks at Reddit at all. I know he hasn't commented since one time when a familiar post showed up on r/AskReddit." And he says, "Of course I do." Someone asked him how life, and he says, "Things are better. Colby sadly passed away about a year ago, but he was getting up there for a dog his size, and it was of natural causes. I'm not sure I want to talk much about my son, but I'll say he and I are much better than we were in 2012 when the incident took place. It's not something we talk about to one another. I hope and pray he no longer fantasizes or concerns himself with that type of behavior. If he does, I wouldn't know about it since he lives on his own now. Run. Dogs run. Dogs in an immediate area run. As for my ex-wife, well, she wound up in therapy after losing her job. Honestly, we don't communicate much, but I do not hear good things about what she's up to now. There are rumors of drugs and certain favors, etc. I don't really want to go into it for my son's sake. As for me, I've been with a new woman for a few years now, and things are much better. She has had a son as well, and we get along just fine. I have to say, life is funny. Who would have ever thought my son putting something in our dog's behind would lead us all down such a strange path? Fuck! I have to say, life is funny. Who would have ever thought my son putting something in our son... No! I have to say, life is funny. Who would have ever thought putting something in my son's... What the fuck? I have to say, life is funny. Who would have ever thought my son putting something in our dog's behind would lead us all down such strange paths? Sometimes I wonder what life would be like if I had never caught him doing it. But who knows? Life is crazy, folks. Love your dog. And that's the wrap up. I mean, R.I.P. Colby. He did not deserve any of the cards he was dealt. Fuck that son. Slightly fuck that wife. And God bless this poor father for being put in such a situation, such a complex situation where there's no precedent set. No one has really gone through what he's gone through, and there's no guide to what steps he should have took. Now, I think we can all say that probably tell your wife if your son is doing something like this, and he learned that lesson pretty quickly as it ruined his entire marriage. But hey, he's doing good for himself. Colby got to live the last few years of his life loved to the absolute fullest in a safe household, and all things considered with this story, a decently happy ending. You know, I'm really starting to think that researching these as I go along probably isn't the best idea, because I never have any idea what's happening next. But next on the tier list is Key Lime Pie Rabbit Hole. Okay, well, moving on from Colby, this one is actually a little bit more tame, and it is also the first unsolved one that I know of so far. It doesn't look like there's any resolution to it. Now, most of my information is actually coming from this Reddit user. I wish I could give them credit, but their account has since been deleted, so thank you for helping me. But what the fuck, where'd you go? I'm also going to mention that this story actually didn't start on Reddit. It's just got discussed by Reddit, but I guess it still counts as a Reddit story. To start it off, we're going to need some context, and that takes us to Asheville, North Carolina, to an old restaurant named Coochie's Key West Cafe. Obviously, this is not your McDonald's or your Starbucks. This is a local town shop. So when it was first being discussed and brought up, people didn't even know if the place was real. But it actually did show up in some newspaper articles as well as Google Street View, so we can at least confirm the existence of the restaurant. It was open from 1978 to around 2005 or 2006 max. And you're going to need to remember this, because this is a key detail to the rest of the story. So the restaurant itself isn't actually the origin of the mystery. that people talk about, but it's the posts that are online about it. So for about 8 years, from 2009 to 2017, keep in mind, after the restaurant closed, a ton of blog posts, obituaries, sexual magazine-ish related content had comments under them specifically talking about the key lime pie and goody cheeseburgers of this restaurant, but most notoriously the key lime pie. Now immediately you would first think, well, it's probably a bot, but some of these websites required an email verification and everything. And when we look at the theories and get a little bit more details about the KLP, key lime pie guy, we can see that it's a very real person, and he was just doing this over 8 years in complete obscurity until people started talking about it. Now the post says, the posts are quite humorous. They're full of puns and wordplay that sometimes contain wacky sexual references like testimonials that coochie key lime pies cause instant orgasms and increase penis size. The poster writes in a style of old-timey radio announcer and makes lots of references to baby boomer pop culture. Now this is also a key point, and we'll give a little bit of examples as we move forward. Often the posts are several hundred words long. Google Coochie's Key Lime Pie and you'll find hundreds more of these posts. The astounding number of bizarre posts has led people to speculate about the identity of the poster and the purpose of the comments, wondering if it's a crazy person, a troll, a bot, a conspiracy. So yeah, this is just super weird. I mean, he's doing this, and it's not like it's just little comments like, oh, the food was great. No, he has full, thought out, typed out, often misspelled paragraphs just focused on this key lime pie. And you know, you would think, okay, well, does this guy even really know about the restaurant? And yes, he does. He actually includes numerous details that are specific to the restaurant that other people can attest to. Some phrases he used, like where eating is a pleasure and cooking is an art, have been seen in both his post and the adverts. He talks about the food as famous, which early adverts did as well. And he also references the music in the dance room, which are details that were in the restaurant. Now, KLP also mentions that the restaurant is run by Oswald and Anita Pelaez, which is true. And he often mentions them in his post and has a little bit more insight than the normal person would about these two people. You can even look at his mention of the goody cheeseburger. I feel so lame saying that, sorry. But you can look at his mention of the cheeseburger and the key lime pie to point to this as well, because that wasn't even a main focus of this restaurant. This restaurant was mainly focused on seafood, prime ribs, and steak. So it's clear he at least knows some general information about the menu. Also, there's mention of a crocodile in the restaurant, which has been referenced numerous other places to confirm it. And some of the keywords that KLP would comment under that the articles would have are posted on the screen, some of them relating to the restaurant, others having seemingly no connection. And his spread of posting on these different forums is nothing shy of unrelated. There's obituaries, there's a lot of sex-related articles, not porn itself, but risky tabloid articles, hot girl pictures, etc. In addition to posts under pop culture articles that reference old celebrities, and even political ones where he mentions Donald Trump back in 2014 and seemingly appraises him. Something to also mention is that it's pretty well regarded and accepted that he has been doing this consistently from 2009 to 2016, and 2016 is when Reddit actually picked up on it, and that's when you notice a slowdown in his post. I mean, we can see the post frequency here. So he was probably pretty aware and not really wanting the attention it was getting, which kind of throws off a lot of the theories coming. Now, he's done this on a variety of different accounts, from misspelled celebrity names to just random American sounding names, but 3 of his most common are Jake Carson, Willie Jordan, and Roger Ramjet. Now, Roger Ramjet is an old cartoon from the 60s, once again referencing the older pop culture. And one episode in this cartoon, often referenced in relation to KLP, is the episode where spies hide secret messages in pies. This will lead into one of our theories, which we'll discuss at the end, but just keep in mind. Now, he does have a plethora of different accounts, and that doesn't just happen by chance. These accounts actually have different posting habits, and sometimes you can identify the post based on the content that's in it. For example, Jake's are almost exclusively copy and pasted, but Willie's are unique and actually engage with the article that they're talking about sometimes. Willie is also the fucking freak. Cue the sound effect. and his tend to go on a more sexual or pornographic tangent. I'm not gonna read any of this. You know, down under our clothes, we're all naked as a bunch of jaybirds. My 7.5 inches just flopping around down there in the breeze. All my wife's beautiful, attractive package is butt naked and ready for my attention on the drop of a hat. Yup, all of us are really butt naked right before our very own eyes. Just a few cloths separating us from our true selves. I vote, along with Jessica, we should all get butt naked together and smile with each other and love one another right now. And while we are spreading our naked asses all over each other, and then perhaps we should totally delight ourselves by ordering ourselves many of those delightful, delicious key lime pies to eat from Anita and Coochie Pelea's Key Lime Pie Factory and Grill. You know what? Leave it in. I don't care. One take. I'm not reading this again. Grill in Nashville, North Carolina, near the Biltmore Estate. Yeah, that sounds like a plan indeed. Are you ready? Hergel. Spit on me. Now, Roger's role to play in the KLP verse is that he typically comments on articles that are separate from KLP's normal topics. He'll go to the more obscure things, the obituaries, the one-offs, and that's where he resides when he leaves his reviews. Now, none of these accounts, apart from a few instances, even have avatars either, and the post reads, the earliest KLP posts from 2009 to 2010 are quite unlike later ones. They're relevant to the articles they're posted on, they're short, and they essentially sound like normal restaurant reviews. The only odd thing about them is that the restaurant doesn't exist. The posts get longer and weirder as time gets on, taking a definite sexual turn in 2013. But each post remains unique. The poster only starts copy and pasting his messages in 2013, and from here on out, the posts are almost exclusively copy and pasted, where he'll change a few details around. So since this got picked up on Reddit in 2016, you had your fair share of impersonators, and from here on out, it became a little bit hard to separate, well, who's the real one and who's just a troll trying to get some attention. But finally, his last message, "Oh no, he's back," was posted 3 times in January 2018. Since then, the KLP poster has not been active. Now, when looking into a few of his posts, past the ones that we already have, there's a few that are specifically acknowledgeable. For specifically noticeable? Specifically worth mention. No, I've said that like 5 times. Motherfucker. Now, he made a handful of posts about Ozgold.com, which Oscar Peleas Sr. seemed to have a little bit involvement with, but it's not extremely clear. And Oz's Gold was a scam, to put it lightly. It was a scam. And the only reason we know that we have a little bit of connection is that Oswald actually did have a scammy sounding post on his Facebook in 2012, but that doesn't really explain the motive. Why would he want to promote Oswald's scam? Was he advertising the site? Was this Oswald actually making all these posts? Now, there's a few posts that basically confirm society's suspicion that, hey, the KLP poster knows about you, bro. In November 2016, a little bit after it was discussed on the Reddit, is these posts starting with, "Hey Bob," where we find the phrases on one forum, "Caution, I think we're being watched," and on another, "Do you ever feel like we're being watched? The Lord loves a working man." And to make this one easy for you, it's from The Jerk, 1979, with Steve Martin. Now, there were a little bit of clues that were left on Reddit to finding his identity. We have a few here that I'll put up, but to focus on a few, a user contacted one of Coochie's sons on Facebook, and he was just as confused, so that kind of discredits a few of the theories coming later. A Redditor talks about a guy who used to date a waitress at Coochie's. He said that Coochie was crazy, even back then, and it's probably him making the post. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into this just because I don't really subscribe to this theory. I'll explain why. 2 of the most important posts that give us information are: a user's friend recalls that there was an autistic or mentally challenged guy that either worked there or lived close by and hung out there that always tried to get us to get the key lime pie. I texted a buddy that used to go with me, and he said that they did have a key lime pie and it was pretty good, as he recalls, but we were drunk 17-year-olds. He said that there was an autistic or mentally challenged guy that either worked there or lived close by and hung out there that always tried to get us to get the key lime pie. I don't remember any of this, but he lived closer and went more often. So, I mean, if you want to take it with a grain of salt, I mean, it could just be a Redditor that's just making some shit up, but that would explain a lot of it, and it would play into the mentally ill or autistic theory that plays in a little bit later. This other post, a user contacted someone who knew Oswald Peleas Sr. This post explained that Oswald Sr. is suffering from dementia and sometimes forget that his restaurant is no longer open. They believed it's very likely that Oswald Sr. was the one making their post. So I unfortunately can't see this as it's in some super secret mega society, I guess, and you gotta fucking request to be in the r/key lime pie mystery. But I'm gonna just take it at face value and trust this poster just like I did with all the other entries. So it's something to keep in mind. So just to recap what we know so far, we can make some pretty educated guesses about him. He definitely frequented the restaurant in the late 90s to 2000s. And the way he writes, adding a ton of capitalization, mocks that of, you know, older people that aren't as hip, as well as his pop culture references, which all tend to be super fucking old, lead us to believe that he had around this time, at least 9 years ago, he was in his 60s to 80s. Also remember that the post started out relatively normal and got lengthier and weirder over time. And when people started talking about it, he kind of went ghost and it kind of spooked him out of the limelight. Diving into a few of the theories, the first one being that the poster is a bot. Now, the abnormally high volume of posting, as well as it being on numerous different websites, can kind of attest to this. And people might think that Oswald bought a bot to go and review his restaurant, but forgot to cancel the subscription. Few things with this. Why would he buy a bot after the restaurant had already closed? Was he planning to open a new one, maybe? The bot would probably also not be able to reference pop culture references and actually change his posting style over time, so this theory is a bit weak. 2, these posts were made to cover up bad publicity about the restaurant or the Peleas family. Now, this theory I also don't really subscribe to, because would you really need 9 years of posting for that? And as far as other people can tell, and they've done way more extensive research than me, it's not like this restaurant had a ton of bad publicity to even cover up in the first place. 3, these posts were made to test SEO techniques, search engine optimization, primarily for advertising. If this is the case, why would he use a real person for this? You can test search engine optimization in a way better way, and also this theory's fucking boring. So next, these posts are coded communication. Now, do you remember that Roger Ramjet cartoon with the spies putting messages in pies, him being named Roger Ramjet, as well as the oddly uncomfortable, do you ever feel like you're being watched? A lot of people think that these are references that act as signals or could have coded information in them when people search keywords. Coochie is also apparently Jamaican slang for weed pipe, so people thought that this might have been a drug trafficking case. Probably not, you know, but one of the more fun ones. 5, the posts are part of an ARG, so why would you stop the ARG when it starts getting attention though? Was 9 years really that much? And also, ARGs usually give more clues to help followers actually figure out some stuff and learn about the story, but unless this is a really complex one, there's really not much to learn from. 6, the poster is a troll. Now, yeah, if you look at the post one-off or something, it does seem very trollish, but for 9 years? Why would they want to harass this random shop that was in Asheville, North Carolina? Also, if he's just trolling about the restaurant, why would he need to bring up Oscar and his family constantly? Now 7, this is the one I subscribe to, is the poster is mentally ill. Original poster states, I think this is the most convincing theory. At the very least, it's obvious that anyone who would spend 8 years making these posts isn't quite right in the head. The poster's intense obsession with key lime pie could point to autism. His crazy stories about Coochies and his odd writing style could point to schizophrenia as well. One thing that kind of throws us off is that all the posts are pretty lucid and thought out, as well as extensive, and the fluctuating level of mental capacity seen in the post can't really be attributed to autism. It's just not really consistent. So another possibility is dementia. The fact that the posts start off pretty coherent and gradually dragged down kind of points to that. And Oswald Sr. at the time of this was in his 90s, and remember the post, they did claim that he had dementia. Now, one thing that the original poster mentions is that when going on his Facebook, the posts don't really match. A lot of his Facebook posts are spelled terribly, and they're really short, so it just doesn't really seem like it. But there is still a chance that I guess he thought that his restaurant was still open from the dementia. And from all this post that I've gathered this information from, his final verdict is that it is Oswald Peleas Jr., aka Captain Coochie himself. He's in his 60s, which would fit with the pop culture references, but he isn't mentally ill. I guess he's just an eccentric guy who this guy thinks might have had a lot of time on his hands. Now, I definitely subscribe to the theory that this is someone that's mentally ill, and 1 month ago, a post was made by Pitiful Steak 768 where he talks about him being a 4th-year psych student and that this has all the markings of someone that's psychotic, suffering from schizophrenia. They are not able to differentiate between the real world and the world in their head, and sometimes they can mesh the two, and while it seems completely illogical to us on the outside, to them it seems perfectly normal. He goes on to talk about a few common examples of their delusion, and basically says that this one could just be a delusion surrounded by Coochie's key lime pie. It would also kind of explain why when the Reddit started picking up on it that he stopped, because it could have just fueled his paranoia more. But I'd also like to come back to this comment on the original post, posted 6 years ago, by Dreams in Chains. This might be pointless to everyone else, but this little detail stood out to me and for some reason makes me believe the obsessive, autistic / mentally ill former restaurant patron theory. I recall seeing that one long rambling comment that was copy-pasted to multiple sites where the poster drones on and on about the 2016 election, where he was clearly obsessed with Trump. And it mentions how he talked to Captain Coochie about who to vote for, and Coochie said that he wanted Pat Paulson to be the president, with Soupy Sales as his VP. It stood out to me because while I don't know anything about Pat Paulson, I do know for a fact that Soupy Sales is dead. Turns out that Howard Stern discussed this around 2008 or 2009. It seemed odd to me that the poster was saying this while discussing the 2016 election as if the conversation happened recently or something. When I knew it couldn't have since Soupy was dead, he looked up Paul Paulson's wiki out of curiosity, and it turns out that he was also dead and died back in 97? But he actually did run for president in damn near every election from the 60s until he died. Now, he points out that the conversation probably did happen, but it would have had to be at least 20 years ago when both members were actually running for president and the restaurant was actually open. Why is he sandwiching a story about his 20-year-old conversation amongst ramblings about the 2016 election as if the convo took place yesterday? For the same reason he's incessantly plugging a restaurant that shut down ages ago. He's fixated on this area of his life when the restaurant was open. Sounds like he is obsessed with the Petraeus family and the interactions he had with them well over a decade ago. Also in the story he mentioned Coochie, referred to him as boy when he asked him who he was voting for, leading me to believe the poster was significantly younger than Coochie and his wife. He seems to idolize Coochie and be in love with Anita, who he keeps describing as gorgeous and beautiful. I think he is likely autistic or mentally ill, and for some reason he is obsessed with these people and their defunct restaurant. Maybe he worked here for his first job, or maybe he was just a local kid who frequented the restaurant, and the Petraeus family happened to be nice to him. Considering the way he speaks and the obsession with a place that no longer exists, I think it's safe to assume he is not a sane or normal-seeming individual, which likely means he didn't have a lot of friends or people who wanted to be around him. I think somewhere along the line, whether as a patron or employee, he got to know the Petraeus family at the restaurant, and they showed him some kind of kindness that he probably wasn't used to, and he has been obsessed with them ever since. It's not unheard of that a mentally unstable person could cling to manufactured relationships with people who barely know them or don't even remember them. So, my theory is he got to know this couple back in the day, some point between the late 70s and the late 90s, was younger than them and a little bit unstable or off, as he has become fixated on them and the relationship he believes he has with them. Why he won't stop promoting the place despite it being gone is beyond me. I think he just can't stop thinking about it and desperately searches for any excuse to bring up this family and his memories of the time in their restaurants and eating their food. Now, to me, this is certainly the most viable theory. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It covers all the bases, besides why he would have different personalities that talk about different things, but all plot holes considered, this is the most foolproof idea, and the mystery still isn't solved, so Lord knows who the KLP poster is, Lord knows what his reasoning for doing this is, and Lord knows what happened to him around the time that the story started getting picked up, and why he just up and left. Now, that was the fourth one on our iceberg, and the last one in tier 1 of the disturbing Reddit post iceberg is
2 broken arms.
Oh, I'm not doing no more tiers of this stupid ass iceberg. This shit's getting out of hand, bruh. So this one starts on r/IMA 13 years ago, in which the now deleted account posted I am a man who had a sexual relationship with his mother. When I was in my teens, I had a sexual relation. I think that we would both characterize the experience as positive. Please feel free to ask anything, but I will not discuss anything that would reveal my identity. Recently, my mom and I spoke with a researcher that is studying examples of incest that were not traumatic. He is preparing a paper on the subject. I am not an advocate for incest. For whatever reason, it worked for us. Don't use my experience as a template. I am here to relate my experience, not debate incest as a subject. Here are some frequently asked questions that people will probably ask. It started when I was 14! Oh! My mom was 37. Damn! I have an older sister that was unaware and not involved. Thank the fucking Lord. My dad knew about it from the beginning and supported my mom's decision. It ended around college. So the dad's just fine with it. The mom's fine with it. The kid's fine with it. What the fuck is going on? So you might think, oh, well, this guy's just fucking trolling, right? No. The mods actually did verify with the researcher who's making the paper. It's true. It's true. And you might be wondering, well, this doesn't seem like it has anything to do with two broken arms. And, well, you're right. He actually never stated explicitly that his arms were broken. But his reasoning for this ever starting did start with an injury where he posts, well, without giving away too info. What the hell? I was injured in an accident at 14 and incapacitated. I went from masturbating 2 times a day to 0. After 2 weeks, first of all, 2 times a day, brother, my God, by golly, save his meat. After 2 weeks, I was frustrated and took it out on my parents. My mom and dad knew what was up and talked about my mom, quote unquote, helping me masturbate. Jesus fucking God. They approached me one afternoon, and when my mom said, I know you are frustrated and why you were frustrated, would you like some help masturbating? Blood was rushing in my ears and I said yes, but I really didn't know if she meant what I thought she meant. I was excited and confused. She said that she would take care of me when I went to bed, hours away. I mean, obviously this thread is just berated with people fucking flaming him for this outlandish behavior. Like, this is ludicrous. But through a few of the posts, we get a little bit more context, unfortunately. So it did start with him just getting, you know, massaged, but it quickly ramped up to using other orifices, such as, you know, the one that's typically on your face that you speak with, and eventually that one. He says, well, the first time we had intercourse, I was lying in bed getting oral from her. Oh my God, dude. I'm never getting into college like this. In the middle of it, she stopped, climbed up my body, pulled her panties aside, and sat on me. She was wearing a long t-shirt. She told me not to come, and she rode me for about a minute and came. She then finished me with her mouth. My head was spinning. Sometimes it was discussed at the table, but not with my dad around. I would never tell anyone I know. This is a grand kidception over here. She just... And you know, people were asking, hey, did she... or... No, she did the latter. She did it. Now people were asking, well, was this your first time? And he said, no, my first time was actually with a girlfriend. But in another post down here, we can see that he was a virgin when it started. It's honestly a little bit unclear what actually resulted from this. I guess on paper it was statutory R word, but I like to, you know, I've said everything in the damn book in this video. Why can't I say it? But I like to think I gave consent even at 14. I don't regret it. The whole point of laws like this is that you can't give consent at 14. Okay? Original poster, you can't do this. Can you go into detail about the first time that she jorked it for you? I know you said you don't want to go into erotic detail. I'm just curious about the exact steps of that first incident. She came into my room and helped me off with my clothes and kept my shorts off. She kept asking if this was okay. I kept saying yes, but I really didn't know what her intent was. I was excited and confused. She lotioned up her hands and started oh my God, stroking me, and I was a little close to orgasm. I was afraid of coming because I thought maybe she thought that she was only massaging me or something, so I kind of panicked and tried not to come. Then she noticed that I was in a bit of distress, so she asked if she should stop. I didn't say no. At that point, she kind of understood what was going on and said that I should relax and let go and that she has a towel. I got the idea that it was okay to orgasm, so I did. I want nothing more than to die today. You know, someone asked, also just fucking threw it out there, were you ever attracted to your sister? And he says, well, yes, but not overly. Okay, I think one of the most bizarre things about this is the father to me, that he was just okay with this relationship happening. And he even talks about that maybe his dad was a little bit jealous at points and they wouldn't talk about it a ton. Dude, that is fucking insane. How does this even come up at the dinner table?
Well, you know, he's just seeming a little bit stressed. I think I can just help him out a little bit.
No, yeah, I agree.
I just want to make sure you're fully okay with this and comfortable and that our relationship won't change as a result.
Can I watch?
People were asking at the time, do you still continue this today? And he says, no. It ended after I left for college. It just started to slow down and then eventually stopped. There wasn't an event that ended it. I've talked to my mother and father about it over the years. The subject is not off limits. I don't think either of us wishes it to start up again. Thank the fucking Lord. Now, I want to make it clear that he did say he would come back and post the research paper after it had been published, but that never ended up happening. My guess is that the fucking researcher was just like, you know what, I'm done with this shit. Or the research paper actually had some clues that could lead to his identity, which I don't think research papers typically do, but it's a possibility. Regardless, we never saw the research paper, but the researcher did confirm that he was in that field and the paper was a real thing at the time. I just want to point out too how insane this was. Like, can you imagine if instead of a mom and a son, it was a dad and a daughter? Bro, he would be locked the fuck up, spat on, thrown rocks at, and stoned to death immediately. Like, this story is absolutely insane and just fucking weird. I don't even know how as a mother you come to this conclusion. Like, get him a toy at least or something. If you're gonna be weird like this, come on, man. I don't know, but you know what? That is tier 1 of the disturbing Reddit post iceberg. They're fucking disturbing. They're disturbing, and this is tier 1. If anybody even makes it this far in the video, please tell me, what do you think of this? You know, I have put so much time into this video. I'm serious. I'm not the editing type, but I tried. Come on, I tried. I don't know if I'm gonna do the later tiers, simply just because the videos take so fucking long to make, but I'm definitely still interested in seeing what the hell else is gonna happen. I mean, if you look towards tier 2, the fucking post starts out with poop scissors. The cum box, cum coconut. Yeah. Like, this is just some interesting shit I'm trying to learn about. But, you know, hopefully anyone watched it. If not, I'm watching it because I just spent so much time on it. And there's tier 1. I need a break. Thank you!
We watching every single stream, watching every single clip, so no one can make the green. Yeah. Let me know it's so funny, and he find out the new dentist. Yeah, he might just make me. In the chat, you know that we gon' follow. Next, we know what we gon' forget what we're hot lows.